I remember the initial night that I took my Shahada, and the love was in abundance. You know, I had one brother come up to me and say to me, if you're ever in Egypt, then just call this number, give me a card. He said, whatever you need, akhi, we give it to you. You know, and I was like, subhanAllah, wow, like I've never come across a person like that before. But then afterwards, like after that immediate reaction, it's like, okay, now no one's around.
Today I'm speaking with Liam. He's a spoken word poet who goes by the name Annotate, and he has his own podcast as well. So I thought I'd come into his studio and talk to him a little bit about what it's like being a revert.
One of the major difficulties that I dealt with and coming to grips to, or with rather, when I became Muslim is that I don't feel there's a lot of understanding around what it takes to sort of adapt to the Islamic lifestyle. If you've been living a certain way for a number of years, you've spent majority of your life adhering to a certain manual, if you will, or way of life, and then all of a sudden, you know, you find something that is better for you, but you have to adapt to it before you can actually be able to appreciate it. It was like trying to fit between two worlds. It's like being stretched or pulled between two worlds, if you will, because obviously my family is primarily non-Muslim, and then my new community is now Muslim, so I have to get used to living this lifestyle, but also understand that at home my family are not going to understand my changes necessarily. It's civil war in my mind, and I've got an angel and devil imploring I take sides, so I Steve Rogers and raise this invisible shield in plain sight, then I iron fight like Tony Stark with iron might. I'm Iron Mike and I drop this devil with an iron right. But that's just me wishing things were that easy. The truth is, I'm in a sunken place, and I've got voices in my head screaming get out, so I don't remain sunk in place. Hence I've got an axe to grind my depression like I'm risking a murder case. I'm determined to body bag distress and then leave the scene without a trace, because it's a matter of mind matters that matter. These mind matters I speak of, a mind scattered and battered to blood splatters, then of a resolve shattered and fragments of hope spattered with thought patterns suggestive of battles with Mad Hatter.
So we're both half white, I guess, but we're also both half non-white. And I think I'm just curious to see your experience and see if it does kind of match with mine in terms of maybe being treated a bit differently than, say, a blonde, blue-eyed revert. Have you noticed any racism?
Really early into my reversion to Islam, maybe 2 years, give or take, I came across a situation where I was interested in someone for marriage, and I approached the person's brother about this marital situation, and I remember having a response given to me regarding this that really made me feel a lot lower about myself, because the person essentially, without being explicit, made it seem as though I wasn't worthy. Because of where I'm from, it was like, this person's from this background, and you're from this background, and it just doesn't mix, you know. And that was my first run-in with that kind of experience of racism, because before that, as a non-Muslim, despite the fact that I know a lot of mixed race people do deal with racism, and especially of course black people, etc., I wasn't somebody that had been a victim of this. So for me it was like, okay, hold on, I've become Muslim, you know, I'm in this faith that is completely against this idea of racism, especially when you even go back to Iblis, who was the first person to be racist because of his arrogance towards Adam alayhi salam. So it was like, hold on a second, now I've got this treatment from people that are a part of the community I've just become a part of. We can take a lot from the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and how he dealt with different people from different walks of life. I think by getting to know someone, or at least communicating with someone before you have these preconceived judgments, that will allow you then to build that compassion.
Yes, my people, welcome back to the Outspoken Podcast, episode 15. I am your host and the Just Rhyme champion.
I was raised atheist, and when I finally became Muslim, all the questions were like, how's the hijab? How's the fast? Are you sure you're doing your prayer right? You know, all these things. Never once did I ever get asked, how did you love Allah? How did you find this love? It was never that. It was all the kind of logistics, and none of the like spirituality or love that I think is the basis of everything else you do as a Muslim. So when you first became Muslim, did you what were kind of the main reactions, I guess?
So I had to kind of build my own coping mechanisms without really understanding much about Islam at all. I didn't understand Tawheed. For the first week, I had a lot of whispering from the shaitan. The devil was whispering, you know, and the devil was telling me, you know, how are you going to deal with this situation with your family? How are you going to tell them? How are they going to react? But then if we fast forward a little bit, I did eventually tell my mum, and my mum, although shocked, she reacted positively. She didn't give me a hard time. She was shocked at first, so her initial reaction was like, oh, okay, is this a phase? Is this a phase? You know, are you gonna come out of this in a couple of weeks' time and go back to living the way you were beforehand, or believing what you did beforehand? But for me, once I kind of explained to her that I feel confident about this now and this is where I want to be, my mum was very supportive. SubhanAllah, immediately she went out and bought all halal food.
Really?
Yeah, she just went out, she bought all halal food, and I was blown away by that, because it's like, my mum obviously has seen me grow up in a certain way for the majority of my life, that she's become accustomed to seeing me and living in that fashion, to all of a sudden, Mum, I can't eat non-halal food, so I can't eat your food anymore. And going out and then buying halal food for me, that was an amazing experience for me.